it says it's starting, but I never know when it starts. I think it started now. So what up? It's your man Manny Faces, the show before the show. Hip-Hop Could Save America. I think we're live. Yeah, we're looking live. Let's see what we got. Okay. This is for the people checking in on the replay of the full episode. You might be catching the replay of the full episode now. That's great. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the full episode. If you're looking for the shortcuts to the interviews, we take the interviews and we put them up as standalone videos. So either way, I don't have any jewelry on. I don't have any accessories. Let me do this right. That's why we let people trickle in to the live stream, but you can fast forward if you're watching on the replay. The live stream is dope. We're here every Monday nights, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time. I don't know where we're at. This is a great show tonight. If you're tuning in live or if you're tuning in on the replay, I do hope you tune in live. Mondays, 9 p.m. It's fun. The people in the chat, they interact, give their 2 cents, throw their comments and questions to the guests. We won't have that tonight because we have pre-recorded videos. But I'll be in the chat and we can kick up some conversations around what's happening. Really good show tonight. Really important topics, including what you see on the screen, rap music on trial. And we do it for the culture, which is a hip-hop based curriculum that teaches students about social and emotional learning through hip-hop. Rap music on trial. We have the star and the director of As We Speak, which is a rap music on trial, which is a documentary that's on Paramount Plus right now. Now, I do believe these gentlemen also were on Tavis Smiley's show tonight. So don't go see it there. See it here because I know one of them personally. It's a better interview. But Tavis, whatever. But we got the same guest as Tavis Smiley. Come on, man. What's happened over here? It's Hip-Hop Could Save America. Why don't we start this show proper since there's a few of y'all here? Let's go. It goes a little something like this. Hit it.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one.
The thing about hip-hop today is it's smart. It's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space is remarkable. And a lot of these kids, they're not going to be reading the New York Times. That's not how they're getting their information.
My hip-hop will rock and shock the nation. Hip-hop culture is more than music.
Peace to you and speak the truth. Show 'em what peace can do in their reach for you.
My hip-hop will rock and shock the nation. Rap is something you do. Hip-hop is something you live.
So hip-hop didn't invent anything, but hip-hop reinvented everything.
This is Baby Girl Faces. And this episode is brought to you by...
Yeah, that's what's up. What up? Shouts to everyone. I was reading the text message. Shouts to everyone tuned in and turned up with us. This is Hip-Hop Could Save America. With your man, your mellow, Manny Faces. That's me. Peace and love to everyone tuned in. Definitely thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors that were mentioned by the inimitable Baby Girl Faces. No one does it better. We got to update that. There's a few more names. I'm getting new subscribers and new supporters. So shouts to people who weren't mentioned in that opening montage. Shouts to Kath, Morgan. Shouts to Patrick, Chris J, and Adam K. Adam K, what's up, man? I appreciate you so much. If y'all want to be supporters of the show, look, if you're first timers, you might not know yet. Why would I support you? Why would I give you money? Well, it's not me. First of all, it's us, right? And you'll see by the end of the show what contributions go to. And it's really, really dope. We tell stories about people who are using hip hop in innovative ways that are helping uplift humanity. Not the entertainment stuff, not the gossipy stuff, not the Usher, Russell Simmons stuff, although I got some thoughts. Not the P. Diddy, I got some thoughts. We'll talk about that sometimes. Maybe we'll do a pop-up in the middle of the week. But this show is to talk about the people that are using hip-hop to uplift humanity, whether it be in schools, science and education, technology, health and wellness, all kind of sort of politics and activism. And if you go back through the archives, you'll see that we do this all the time. We talk to people like this all the time. It's actually what a lot of folks have been asking for. Hey, can we have hip hop, media that takes the culture seriously? And no shade to anybody else, but Nobody does it as good as me. So I'm just saying, it is what it is. But so you can support the show and put some money into it. It really helps. It helps us turn on the lights, of course, keep the computers putin', but also maybe help some people get some people put on. I had an assistant for a little while, and then the funds dried up. I'd like to be able to put money in other people's pockets so that we can help build the empire. So if you could feel so inclined, if you're able to do it, patreon.com/Manny Faces. One day I'll literally have someone that could throw it in the comments section while I say it. But one of y'all could do it. It'd be really great to help me out. Shouts to everyone in the chat who's coming in early. Bob Knutson, what up? Bob Knutson out there in Wisco. Adam Cruz, hey, what up, Adam? Good to see you. Again, thank you so much. Silent Night, my man, my mellow. Silent Night, if you know me, you probably know Silent Night. We worked together on a bunch of things. He jumped in on the show a few times, and he's got new music out. It was in the latest edition of the newsletter, which we're going to talk about next. It's a free newsletter giving you hip-hop news that isn't about dumb-ish. Matter of fact, it's filled with this hip-hop news that isn't about dumb shit. So you can also subscribe to that newsletter. We'll talk about that. And of course, in there, I do point out to some folks who are doing good music. And it's not just about like hip hop in the schools and all the nerdy stuff. It's about like, yo, I know who's hot. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you tonight, we got a great show. We got a great guest. And it's someone that I told you was going to be big, that I told you was going to do important work, that I told you was no joke more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago. And every year, this brother proves me right over again and again and again. And I appreciate that. And we're going to talk about that tonight, because tonight we're talking about rap music on trial. If you're like me in the Atlanta area, I mean, if you're not like me, you probably heard of this phenomenon, this rap lyrics being used as evidence in courtrooms against young artists. It's a interesting phenomenon. It's come to light because of Young Thug's trial down here in Atlanta on RICO charges, no less. But it's been an ongoing thing for quite some time. I've been looking at this issue and talking about it for a while. There's been books on it, including this book right here, Rap on Trial, Race, Lyrics, and Guilt in America, which you've heard me talk about before. I've been in conferences with Killer Mike and Eric Nielsen and Andrea Dennis, who wrote that book. Talking about these things. So this has been going on for years. It's an interesting topic. We're going to talk about it because there is some danger in rap lyrics being used as evidence in court. One might say, you spit about a crime on wax. Wax, I'm like, y'all know what I mean, wax. I'm old, listen to me. You spit about a trial in your lyrics, you spit about a crime in your lyrics, and you deserve to get, locked up. There's a DA right down the block here in the Atlanta area, famously known for taking on Trump. And I support those efforts, I guess, but I don't support the fact that she was one who said, you use rap lyrics, we'll use rap lyrics against you in a court of law. But it's an interesting conundrum. There is a documentary out right now, a very finely crafted film called As We Speak, Rap Music on Trial. It's on Paramount Plus. As I promised a few weeks ago, I played the trailer. We talked about it a little bit. I happen to know the artist /face/star of this episode, and I met the director of the episode. They will be on this show in a mere 15 minutes, as soon as I get through the opening news and stuff. So we have great guests. We also have Jamila Sams tonight. Get another pre-recorded interview, but we'll talk about it in the chat. Matter of fact, let me just check on the comments. Hey, what up, Candace? Hey, what up? My man Conscious. Hey, what up, C? Good to see you. And of course, Chosen checking in again. Peace, Chosen, Prism, Chosen, Hip-Hop, Family. That's what I'm trying to say. So listen, I'm going to run through these things. We have a beautiful newsletter that if you tune into this show, I don't like that it does that. Why do you do that? If you tune into this show, there you go. Look at that. That's fancy. That's pretty. That's fancy. Y'all like that. Let me give you one for me. So semi-frequently, I put out this newsletter. It's called Words I Manifest. Y'all get it. It sounds a little something like this.
Take heed to the words that I manifest. Words that I manifest. Words that I manifest.
Who else do you know has a newsletter that has its own theme song? Right? That's what I'm saying. So look, Words I Manifest. You see this the link on the screen, mannyfaces.substack.com. And while it's all about me, it's not really about me at all. If you look right here, We have a little preamble and we talk about all our supporters, and then we give you some updates. Now, you might not catch every episode of this show. You might not know what's been hitting, and I do encourage you to subscribe real quick if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, let me see, a couple of y'all on Twitter, that's what's up. Go to hiphopcansaveamerica.com/watch, or just hiphopcansaveamerica.com, and there's a link there. Watch us on YouTube. I'm trying to bring everyone over to YouTube. That's where the functionality is. That's where the numbers are big. That's where the algorithms, second biggest search engine, all the things. Come on over to YouTube. But you might not catch all the episodes live, and you might want to just be kept up to date about who we have on. Now, yes, last weekend, the Selma Jubilee, the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday in Selma, went down, of course. And you might have seen it on the news because Vice President Kamala Harris was there. Calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, which was respectable and overdue, I suppose. But, whatever. It made the news. Part of that Selma, I don't want to say celebration, it was more like a commemorative event that happens every year. The Selma Jubilee was a international hip-hop political summit where people get together and there's performances and there's people looking at hip-hop from a political lens. A few episodes ago, we had Adia Winfrey, Dr. Dia, as she's affectionately known, who talked about her work in Alabama as a congressional candidate, but also in helping change the redistricting maps, the political structure of the state, which decides what areas are drawn in different congressional districts. It's usually used as a tool to, listen, both sides do it. I get it. One side a little bit more egregiously than the other, but it's used as a tool to try to limit the effect of the voting public, right? So a lot of times you'll hear about it as being unconstitutional because they redrew the maps so that black people wouldn't get a lot of the vote in this section, and they'd be able to guarantee a Republican candidate, for example, would go to Congress from this particular district. And that's usually some finagling and some shady biz. So Dr. Dia broke it down and said that part of her work using hip hop as a rallying force in Alabama was able to help combat these things out there that are happening. So again, these are what's happening in hip hop that we don't necessarily see in our mainstream media, for sure, and most of our hip hop media. So we bring it to you live and direct here Mondays at 9. And then we give it. So like this video, if you're watching on YouTube, Natalie Cruz, right? The best chat is on YouTube. I think that's true. Everyone's in one place, and I can do things like this. Shouts to Natalie Cruz, my good friend, one of my day ones, as we like to say, and just a super person doing super dope things. Once again, thank you to Conscious Walker checking in. My man C, man, has not stopped leveling up, came a long way and hasn't given up. We're going to talk about people that we know that have come a long way as well tonight. We're going to talk to them, and I appreciate that sentiment. Like I said, Chosen's here. Let's put up y'all stings. And I love it. I love the people that some of y'all are regulars now, and it's beautiful, and some of y'all are first timers. So let's do it. Let's keep it going. So again, in this newsletter, yes, I kind of big up some of the things that we do, but I also spread interesting news that you might not catch, and I curate them. And here's a list, for example, just real quick. We'll talk about one or two of them. I had reported when this went out that we had just gotten guilty verdicts in the Jam Master Jay murder trial. There was a review about Andre 3000's flute concert. That was pretty dope. And we shouted that out because he had just dropped that show here in Atlanta. There's a great story about how cassettes and tape trading shaped hip hop's early years. There's an article about the Vince Staples show. You catch this yet? The Vince Staples show, apparently pretty good. We shouted out Eddie Chiba, a hip hop pioneer who had passed away. We had a great look back at Biz Markie and why he embodied hip hop. We talked about a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things in hip hop. Baltimore has a mini hip hop museum. We shouted that out. You wouldn't know about these things, generally speaking, if you don't subscribe to the newsletter. It's really dope. I don't do it enough. Once again, the more you put up some Patreon love, the more I can get these things out on a regular basis. But that being said, it's a great resource, and it's free, and you can get it and just do it. Why am I small? Make me big in in Japan. I'm not big in Japan. So anyway, listen, let's get to it. I don't want to keep on going, rambling about things that you could have seen already and you might have seen already. So I want to move to this. One quick show note, what do they say, like programming note. I was supposed to be in New York for this on the 16th, which was the Hip-Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. We talked about it a few times on this show. Just want to say, if you've been following along at home, the Hip-Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference has been postponed. It was going to happen at Fordham University in the Bronx. I do encourage you to stay tuned to them. Again, the newsletter has all this information. Just please stay tuned into the newsletter. Did I put the chat? I did. I put it in the chat. Please follow the newsletter. Sign up. It's free. We often put up conferences, and some of them are academic, but a lot of them are also really, really good for artists to go to. And a bunch of them are also good for, I don't know, who might you be? A fan of hip-hop culture? A fan of the music, a fan who doesn't see what they like represented in today's hip hop landscape? You might be one of those. If you are, that sounds like a Viagra commercial. This might be you. Ask your doctor if hip hop conferences are right for you. But if they are, I'm going to give you a bunch of them that you can go to. Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference would have been one of them. The Can't Stop Hip Hop Education Conference is happening at Harvard in May 3rd and 4th. So again, the newsletter contains these things. These are things that you can go to if you are a academic for sure, a college student who's getting into hip hop as a way to kind of analyze the world, and you want to take your hip hop into college with you. Great places to learn about doing that. Teachers, of course, and artists who want to say, hey, I want to use my artistry in a way that could help move things up in the world or contribute to humanity. Maybe I'm not trying to be a rap star anymore, but I could rap. Maybe I'm not trying to be a producer to the stars, but I can teach kids how to make beats because I know it's therapeutic. These are the things that we like to talk about. So yeah. So that's all the stuff. So make sure you stay tuned to the newsletter. I can't tell you no other way. Check out the newsletter. Look, I'm gonna highlight my own comment. Look how meta that is. Right? mannyfaces.substack.com. It's free. You can lend some, money to the cause there as well. But that's not the point. The point is you get this information for free. Now, moving along, as I promised, I don't want to wait too long to get into it. Let me preface this by saying that I've known one of our next guests for quite a long time. And this is a personal story, I guess. It won't be too long, but it's relevant because for a long time, if y'all don't know, I created and ran an online publication called Birthplace Magazine, birthplacemag.com. And what I did was, when a lot of the world and media had turned their back on New York's independent hip hop scene, I had looked into it and said, hey, there's a lot of really great things happening here in New York. And whether it was independent artists or longstanding institutions that had gone on for years and years and years, like Freestyle Mondays or End of the Week or My Family at Bonfire Radio, legendary ciphers, all these kind of Supreme Bars, all these institutions of community and artistry that were just unmatched in their camaraderie, in their love for the community, for the people, by the people, of the people, all these things. This is what I was seeing in New York. Now, I saw some dope artists too, and I wanted to big them up and write about them. And it's that journey, that 10-year journey of covering that area that led me to find people who were doing hip hop in innovative ways. Again, people using hip hop in schools or as mental health counseling or, in politics and activism. And I said, well, I love New York, but I got to expand my coverage. And it led to where we are today. One of the gentlemen, who was a very young man at the time, 18, 19 years old, who came out with a really impressive line of musical entrees for us to feast on. His name was YC the Cynic. YC the Cynic. And I had started, Birthplace Magazine, and within a year, I was really advocating for this idea that New York hip hop didn't suck. Like, I don't know what y'all think, because y'all was all about Houston and Atlanta, but New York hip hop was the Mecca, it wasn't dead, et cetera, et cetera. And in the very inaugural column that I wrote called 5 Reasons Why New York Hip Hop Doesn't Suck, one of them was this young man, YC the Cynic. He had just dropped an EP, a mixtape, and he had done great work. He had cut his teeth on all these aforementioned institutions in New York City. And he was doing really great for like a young kid that, in a world where not everyone, I hate speaking hyperbolically, a lot of people were in New York trying to emulate sounds from other parts of the country. this kid had some boom bap DNA. He had some real good, but his flow, his lyrics, his way of approaching things really stood out. And we noticed him. A lot of us noticed him. And I wrote him up. I covered him many, many times. I followed him through his career. He changed his name to Kemba a bunch of years ago. We've seen him in personal and professional settings a great many times. He's a friend of the room. He's a friend of many people who might be listening or watching this. And a couple months ago, I realized that there was a documentary being produced that would cover the idea that rap music lyrics are being used as evidence in court against young, primarily black artists, and being done so in an unfair and disproportionately, damaging way, as with a lot of legal things and young black people in America. And this documentary was starring this man named Kemba, who we knew. And I got a chance to talk to the people at Paramount and they reached out, and I said, well, I'd love to talk to Kemba and the director, JM, about this film. I'm going to show you the trailer real quick. And then CM in the building. What up, Charlotte? And then we're gonna talk to them. So real quick, if you're not familiar with this trailer, and I spoke a little bit earlier about the ongoing saga of rap lyrics being used, and it's a conundrum. There are some interesting legal conundrums, whether you're dealing with someone confessing or not, whether artwork is something that should be submitted, the disparity between when it happens to a young rap artist or somebody from another genre, how prosecution and judges and juries view lyrics. It's a whole thing. So let's look at the trailer, and then we'll talk to the two folks that are responsible for throwing this wonderful movie out. Let's go.
The conditions shape the culture, then they focus on the symptoms. Make a profit off, make a mockery of, then lock you up for lyrics.
Rap lyrics are playing an increasingly prominent role in criminal cases.
Artists say the current law violates the First Amendment right to freedom, igniting a national debate among attorneys.
These trials affect rap artists and typically stem from racial prejudice.
The criminalization of hip-hop is not new, it's an old tactic.
When I'm storytelling in a song, you gonna use that against me?
Every song, every lyric, every video that you've ever been involved with, they're gonna use against you.
They're gonna say it's you. You are a killer, and we're gonna lock your ass up.
If they don't have evidence, what are they gonna do?
It's not about justice. They spliced the lyrics of two different songs together, so I was found guilty.
This artistic expression is a confession.
They're taking all of my music as evidence. The only thing I feel like I would want to do is music. So how are you trying to stop me doing that?
We can criminalize rap all we want, but that's not going to resolve the issue.
If we lose this case, who's next?
This is how it is being us.
Don't help your enemies destroy you.
I'm ready. Roll the tape.
So I'm very excited to share information about this. Once again, like this video, please share it real quick. Whatever platform you're watching it on, just share it. Let people know what's happening. Make sure you're subscribed. Turn on notifications. We come on live every Monday, 9 p.m., but I might do some pop-ups here and there. I want this to succeed. I want this to win. I need y'all to help me out. So make sure you're doing all the things, smashing all the buttons, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get into it. This is my interview with the director of this wonderful, fine film. His name is JM. And of course, our good old friend, our old young friend, Kemba. Let's check it out. JM, my man Kemba, good to see y'all. Thank you for spending some time with us on Hip-Hop Could Save America. How y'all doing?
Yo, life is good, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no doubt. It's my pleasure. I've given the live stream folks a little bit of heads up about the film, what we're here to talk about. But if you could, Jay, maybe just from your point of view, the log line, as they say in Hollywood,
sure,
of what this film is about, if you could just sum it up so that people will get it from your perspective.
Totally. Well, it's a story about the work of artists being used against them in courtrooms across America. Specifically, it's about the history of how rap lyrics have been used and are now being used against artists in courtrooms. And it's a story that starts here, but then goes back 300-400 years and shows how we got here in the first place.
Yeah, it's obviously so not obviously but obviously people know me. I've been kind of looking at this issue. This issue isn't new, particularly as you say, it goes back to hundreds of years as you explore the film. But particularly recently, right here in Atlanta, obviously it's been kind of on the forefront of people's minds with Young Thug trials and other instances where rap lyrics are now being used as evidence. So it's a little bit less inside baseball now. It's a little bit more out in the mainstream. So the timing of this was really important, I guess. Interestingly enough. So how did the film, how did the project come to life? How did y'all two hook up? Kemba, I'm gonna get to you because I know everything about you. But how did y'all two link up? Like chicken or the egg? What came? Like the project came first, then you met Kemba. Did Kemba come to you? How did y'all link up and get this kind of project come to life?
No, I knew Kimba. I had met him maybe like a year, maybe even a little more than a year before I was given this book called Rap Lyrics on Trial. And so I read the book. The foreword was written by Killer Mike. And it was just exactly. Yep. Yeah. So that book is responsible basically for the journey that we then took. And I, in figuring out what the film would be, I knew that I didn't want it to be like an academic study of the issue like the book was. I knew it needed to be something different to reach the culture, to reach people in a more engaging way for what we were trying to do. And so I immediately thought of Kemba. From the very beginning, I knew I wanted to have him involved if he was willing to sort of go on the journey. And then having him at the center of it gave us a point of view, which is from the artist's point of view, because we had all heard a lot, as you were saying, especially the Young Thug in the news, you're always hearing from a prosecutor or a DA or from his attorneys or
Some
from
legal
the
analysts.
pundits. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
From everybody but the artists. And they are as silent as you have ever seen them when they're sitting in the defendant's seat. They're made to be quiet. And so it was a really almost obvious avenue for us. If there's a story that hadn't yet been told, and it was about the person who is not saying anything, that's the artist. So that's where Kemba came in, being obviously a phenomenal artist himself. It gave the whole film a point of view, and that's how it started.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I described this as a documentary / dramatization. You know what I mean? And so it's it was a unique way of doing it, because it could be straight documentary, and it's we see and documentaries are great. I love documentaries.
Right.
But the fact that it was dramatized, I guess Kemba, bro, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
There you go, man.
It's I guess the question is, how much of the dramatization did you come up with? It seems like, as I know from the opening scenes, a lot of you was in this film, so the dramatization part seemed real personal at times, just from family photos, and then how you obviously I know you as an artist for a long time, and that some of these issues are core to your heart. They're in your lyrics. You've never shied away from these topics, and so how did you feel getting into this project, and what was your kind of, I guess, starting perspective as it took shape?
When Jason told me about it, it was probably like the quickest yes in the world. Like I knew. I knew this was for me, like you said, this is sort of like a culmination of all the things that I've always sort of been passionate about. And my involvement, it really was, I was fortunate enough, Jason allowed it to be sort of like a think tank sort of environment, where I was really just passionate about getting it right, and representing sort of artists the right way. And Jason had a vision already, and so we were able to sort of bounce off ideas, and it was a really cool environment in that way, from the sort of scenes to the voiceover stuff. It was a collaborative effort.
Yeah, it seemed to be. The traveling aspect, the kind of going around the world, I think what I like about this is that, first of all, people don't know that this is an issue to begin with. The people that do know that this is an issue to begin with think of it as a domestic American thing.
Yeah.
I actually, the first time that I really got in depth about it, and I wish I knew her name, I'd have to go digging. I sat on a plane going to a conference once, and it just so happens that I'm sitting next to someone who's going to the conference, and they were from Canada. and they were presenting on this very same, this was like 10 years ago. So this very same issue, but from a Canadian point of view. And that's when I started learning that, oh, there was a heavy metal artist that was charged with this crime, and the lyrics, you know, kind of in some of his songs, but it wasn't used against him, you know, and I started realizing this disparity exists. So where did the idea of going from city to city come about? And then was the international aspect something that you initially thought you'd do or discovered along the way?
Well, as somebody who has lived both in New York and Atlanta, like yourself, I mean, you know, the texture of the music is so different from region to region.
Yeah.
And so we knew that we wanted to go to East Coast, West Coast, and the South, and Chicago, like Midwest.
Sure.
Period. And then as soon as you land in Chicago, really the journey of drill music became the journey of the film. And then that took us to the UK, because after it had been basically stifled in Chicago by CPD and really in the surrounding Midwest region, it became nearly impossible for the major drill artists to have to just throw a show there. And so they all moved out of Chicago. And in the same way, the film then goes to London, where that drill sound was then picked up and changed before it was then shuttled back to the Bronx and Brooklyn. So that whole journey of what the music did, going underground, popping back up in the UK, and then making its way back. And around 2020, in the Bronx and Brooklyn, we just followed that story, and that brought us full circle back to Kemba's home. So that's how we did it. Yeah.
Yep. Up at the Bronx where the people are fresh. One of the there's two like ideas that are explored in this, and I think we touched upon them briefly, but let's dive in a little bit. The legalities of this, right? The disparity, whether lyrics can and should be used in a court of law as evidence. What's the line between art and you know, and in this case, evidence, or you know, something that would be held against you, right? That could be used against you, and the complications with that, especially with rap music, especially with multicultural kind of stuff, because very often the as you've explored, the meanings behind some of the lyrics are just foreign to folks outside of the culture. So we have this legal thing, like, should art be even used in that way? They don't go after film directors. They don't go after actors, right? In the same way that they're going after artists. And then the second one is artistically, like, it's almost like what you say, you know, as we speak, should we speak? Can we continue being artists if this is something that insidiously could be used against us? So from those two perspectives, what are the sort of major takeaways or bullet points that you wanted to get across in the film? Maybe Jay from the legal standpoint and Kemba from an artist.
So a couple of things. One, yeah, you're right. It's not just we as a Western culture are obsessed with violence. Everybody knows that. You just turn on the TV and you're served this full menu of violence. It's like, what do you like? You see people get killed, like anything you could possibly want, and we
on a scale of 1 to John Wick.
On a scale of, exactly. And but the people that we celebrate, the celebrities in the Hollywood culture are the people who you could say have done the most to make sure that violence is at the very core of the way that we entertain ourselves. But you then rewind that back, you see it's not just like an American story; it's just a human story. Back to the days of from the days of gladiators to all the way up to the days of Shakespeare, we've always found ways.
Entertained?
Are you not entertained?
Right.
Perfect. Russell Crowe said it himself. So
it's immortalized in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Wink, wink.
But you notice it's the first time anybody's ever brought up that phrase. But you notice what happens to the crowd when he says that. Are you not entertained? And everybody goes dead silence, like they've never been asked that question. And then, so they're thinking about it for a second. It's like, this is kind of, I don't know if we can swear on the show, but it's kind of like, it's kind of effed up that we are entertained by death. And then everybody, you know, starts shouting and celebrating the fact that this guy is the greatest killer of them all. What is so different from right now? It's no different with the music, like in terms of the context of like, we're entertained by the lyrics. But when it comes to a courtroom, it's a very different story. And all of a sudden, something that is entertainment in the outside world once you're inside the world of the courtroom, it's like you're entering into a different reality. And that's what we were trying to do in the telling of the film, was that if you take lyrics from a certain context and you put them in the mouth of a judge or a prosecutor or a DA, reading them totally divorced from the music, they're very easily mischaracterized. And then from that, you have the doc explores this from the moment that the first Africans set their foot on the shores here in America. You had the war of the state trying to suppress the music and suppress the lyrics, from banning drums after the first major slave rebellion in the 1700s, the Stonewall Rebellion. From that moment of South Carolina saying, it's called the Negro Act. Black people can't have drums. From that moment all the way to today, it's actually a very clear line from genre to genre: Negro spirituals, rhythm and blues, jazz music, rock and roll, soul music, to hip hop. It's the same thing that's been happening in every Black genre. So legally, yeah, in answer to your question, it's not an old tactic that's been happening. As Killer Mike says in the doc, it's not new what's happening. It's just the latest link in the chain. And yeah, there's a massive double standard to be entertained by this thing, but then to incarcerate people for it if it's coming from the hip hop genre.
Yeah, I mean, just mention I put together another podcast. It's called Newsbeat. It's a social justice journalism one, and our second episode was the war on drugs and how that people exactly. I think it goes back to Ronald Reagan or Nixon, and it goes back even further to Harry Anslinger in the 30s, and and attacking jazz singers for the most part. Totally. Including Billie Holiday. It's a great it's a great tragedy. So again, not a new story. But the fight continues for artistry to be taken seriously, Kemba. And I'll preface this with this: there are people who say, "Well, listen, and there's a DA right around the corner here who says you gonna commit your crimes on wax. Wax. Listen to me, I'm old. On wax. I'm gonna put you in jail for it." So how do you do the pushback of, listen, sometimes this stuff is actually questionable whether this is artistic value or just or straight narrative. And if it's straight narrative, is it confessional, blah blah blah. As an artist, how do you deal with that, or how do you look at that with other artists, and then how do you deal with it yourself?
I think that's the exact thing that makes it so difficult. Some people are that's happening. Some people are committing crimes and rapping about it. It's very few, but I think those sort of set the example for this to be used, for lyrics to be used. Those are always the sort of scapegoat arguments. As an artist, there's like never been a time, especially in Black music, where people weren't writing about their surroundings, writing about the environment, what they were going through, even back to Negro spirituals. That's always been a sort of core foundation of Black music, and so it's not going to stop now. People are struggling right now. Lower class is crazy, and so people are going to write about it. People are going to write about the violence around them. I think bringing lyrics into like a court case, not only is it's not just about combing through the lyrics and seeing if something matches the crime. It's sort of like the intention behind the writing. So if you divorce the context of intention, like, is this just to entertain? Is this metaphor? Is this, then it becomes so easy to make it whatever you want to make it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what's happening the most. It's like, it's like people are writing this stuff, as you said. We have an appetite for insatiable sort of appetite for violence, and so people are using that to come up, to get out of the hood, honestly. And so I don't think it'll ever change. I wouldn't tell artists to stop writing how they write, to stop expressing themselves. I wouldn't tell them to censor themselves. I think it's sort of our job to get educated on it and to push for these changes in legislature. And there's been some progress in the Rap Act in like California, but we're working to get it sort of I'm saying we. Well, it's
Well, you're part of it now.
Right
You're
now,
part of it. You're part of it now. Yeah.
But yeah, there's hope that it'll that sort of thing will be nationwide and hopefully even more, and that it'll have some sort of teeth to it, because right now even in California it's sort of done in a way where they can easily find loopholes to still bring lyrics in and still sort of do it. But it's a work in progress, man. I don't think it's a very sort of nuanced conversation. So it'll take some time.
Yeah. I mean, books are great, but again, visual learners love documentary/dramatization. So this helps add to that fight, I guess. Or at least the realization. You might be on the other side of it. You might be on the, if all the stuff is criminalized and you shouldn't be talking about it, and and we're going to prosecute you for it. But then if you don't know these other kind of nuances, as you say, then it gets lost in the sauce. What's interesting is that there's a lot of people who say, keep this stuff off the radio. And my response is, it's there. What you said, Kemba, they're still going to write about it. They're still going to release it to YouTube. Like, you're not going to stop I guess, even if it's embellishment, even if it's, I have to flex because of my surroundings, so I'm going to rap in a way that makes me seem bigger than life.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to happen until you fix the conditions that are causing the circumstances that are creating the content.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Even the idea, like, if my surroundings are rough, violent, like, I'm gonna talk like I'm bigger than that, like I'm stronger than that, like I'm the, I'm the one that's in power, in charge. It's gonna happen until we fix the conditions, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just to add to that it's again, it's it was back in rock and roll times, they were saying the same thing. Well, they were saying it was like nigger music, and they were saying keep it off the radio. The main problem with the music back then was that it was bringing white and black people together, people of all colors together, and that when the music wasn't lyrical, with jazz calling it devil's music, that there's always been a pushback to music that causes people who are on opposite sides to relate. And hip hop does that perhaps more than any other genre that has been done. Most of the listening audiences, I think, white, or the buyers. At least it was that way in the 2000s, in the golden age of like gangster rap and hip hop. Like, most of the people who were buying the music, well, just the majority were the majority population in the States, and so I think that freaks out parents. That freaks out people on some level. That, hey, my kids are doing this thing that I think was it Ice-T who said on the Oprah show, he was like, if they're listening to the music, it means they're interested in what's going on in my neighborhood. And that scares people.
Can't have that.
Yeah, you can't have
that.
Once you have people who are listening, that means that maybe on some level they're understanding, and if they understand, then they'll try to do something about it. And then you're messing with the power structure that's in place. And there are forces working very hard to preserve those institutions, cultural institutions, and ways of doing things in our culture, as the documentary then goes back and tells the stories about. So yeah.
I mean, it reminds me of this concept that hip hop could, I don't know, save America. Maybe it just I don't know, something just in the back of my head. I thought I heard it somewhere. Kemba, let me ask you a question. How, and then explain why. What I mean. How did RDAC plant seeds in your foundation that led you to this place right now?
Man, that's a great question. I think well, RDAC is sort of like the culmination of me learning from Rebel Diaz and just their influence on me.
And just to explain to the folks, RDAC, Rebel Diaz Arts Collective, right? It was called a collective.
Yes.
Right. Up in the Bronx. This was a community-based, art center.
Yeah. We used to have workshops and programs. We taught kids how to record, how to write, Pro Tools, photography, Photoshop, so many things. We had a radical library. We did sort of music, film weeks. It was really cool. I think just knowing Rebel Diaz, meeting them when I was so young, my formative years, 15, 16, and them sort of taking me under their wing, and it just I developed my sort of analysis of life through activism and through sort of political education. I was traveling the world with them, and just seeing different people's struggles and talking to people that I would have never had access to otherwise. Going to Ferguson after Mike Brown was killed, and going to Baltimore uh, after Freddie Gray, and the SOA conferences in Atlanta and Venezuela with them. And it's just I learned so much, and I saw so much of the world, and it that really sort of impacted the way I write and just the way I see everything, just as a united struggle.
Yeah, dope. I just want to give flowers to the folks that do things in the communities, that people don't think hip hop does, but hip hop does all of these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, word. So what's, I guess, the feedback been for both of y'all since the thing, obviously the film has just dropped on Paramount. It's only been out for a little bit. What's just been like kind of the general feedback, I guess, from the public, from other artists, from folks that y'all might have, known, or just from strangers? What's it feel like now that it's out?
Well, it's been kind of amazing. Like, even like when we were doing the screenings in person at Sundance, people would come up to us afterwards from all different walks of life and at different age groups. People who, like you said, come to the documentary thinking one thing and then walking out thinking something completely different. People who mostly, like some of the older audiences who walked in thinking like, that these like rap artists are rapping about crimes that they've committed and they should be prosecuted for it, and then having a complete 180 turn and being like, this is way more complicated than that black and white thing. We've had prosecutors come up to us afterwards. We've had public defenders, several public defenders come up to us afterwards and say, I have this conversation every single week, and I'm so glad for the first time we feel seen, and like this is essential. We've had prosecutors who have turned into public defenders who come up and talking to us and saying the same thing. So it's been kind of remarkable, that feedback. And the press, for the most part, has been really positive about the film. And that has been great to see, as well as the word just starts to spread about it. And during a time in which legislation is starting to happen as well. So it's from my perspective, it's been pretty great.
Yeah, I agree. I've had people tell me that it's happened to them. Tell me about people that it's happened to that in their hometown. As I've come to find out, that sort of 700 cases that we know about. The co-author Eric Nielsen said we should add a few more zeros to that. And I'm hearing about these people that it's happened to, and that's been sort of an honor that people feel like they can come to me or should come to me and tell me that type of stuff. That's been my favorite part of it, honestly.
That's big. That's big. I guess then as we wind down a little bit here, what's the one, it's a little bit of what you just said, but maybe what would be like sort of the one either takeaway that you got from working on the project, or the one thing that you want people to watch it for?
For me, everything in the documentary, whether we're having these rappers in Chicago do Shakespeare to show how talking about violence has been something that we've been doing since the 1500s, and it's like our most exalted form in the English language of storytelling is about communities that are lower class communities, or communities in a poverty class, talking about their issues and their concerns, and elevating those to the status of art, and that those are the stories that our culture has held the most dear, and that just showing people that today that's the same thing that's happening, but there's a difference there in how we view it, and there shouldn't be. That doing things like that in the doc is in an effort to help people see the artist differently and see the music differently, and that's my hope. Because if you can do those two things, then all of a sudden all the issues with the system, it's hard not to care about just how broken the criminal justice system is in this particular case. And to the question, I guess, just finally, of what The people who walk in and say, like, some of these rappers are committing crimes, and then they're talking about them in the music. As Kimba said before, the vast majority, including in cases like Mac Phipps, where he spent 21 years in prison on a 30-year sentence, and which was eventually exonerated, but not after taking all those years of his life, is that the vast majority of the cases are prosecutors taking this lyric from here and this lyric from here and this lyric from another song and copy and pasting them together to create their own narrative around what the music means. And these are the so-called experts in the system. There's just as long as they know they can use the lyrics, they're going to use them any way that they want and can, and they're going to use this, again, 300-400 years of cultural programming inside every juror's brain, that when they hear rap music, they're immediately going to think that the people behind this music are inherently violent, are actually committed to doing the things in the lyric, that there's no poetic background or justification for the words. Like, that's what every jury member and judge is sitting down, pre-programmed, knowingly or unknowingly. That's how they are judging the music. So the documentary is meant to just clear that whole palette and to say, just look at it cleanly, look at it with new information, and make your own judgment. So that's my hope for the doc.
Yeah. My hope is that like I said before, if there's 700 known cases, and we should add a couple more zeros to that. I want people to sort of realize and come to the conclusion that, you know, all of these people are not huge artists. These are not all sort of young thugs. The vast majority are people that are not rapping for a living. And so these are people that have jobs and families and are only seen as a rapper when it is time to convict.
Right,
You know?
right. I always say, like, you'll see an article, it'll be like, you know, local rapper arrested for such and such. And I'm like, he works at Wendy's, bro.
Right.
Like, he just put up some YouTube videos. He's not a rap. Like, till you put rapper on your your taxes at the end of the year,
right?
You know, but like you say,
100%.
when it's time to write the article, they're a rapper.
100%. And that is literally because that is like a proxy, like it like triggers these prejudices, it triggers biases, and it makes just the case so much stronger. And so, yeah, I hope that when people see it, they can sort of spot it now after they watch the film.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think it's noble work. Obviously, it's right up our alley. We are happy to see it come to fruition. Jay, it's a great way to translate that book into something, you know, like I said, visual, that is engaging. I think y'all handled it, you know, really, really, really smartly. Taking it around the world was an added touch. I think that, you know, people don't realize that this isn't just you know, a United States problem. It's a oppression problem. It's a hierarchy problem. It's a division problem. You know what I mean? And that extends, you know, throughout not just this industry, as we're talking about, but obviously just throughout the lands. So I thought it was well done. I thought it was important. And I thank you for bringing it to light.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for allowing us to talk about it here. And it's these sorts of conversations that will actually enact the change that we're looking for. So, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Well, like you mentioned, you know, there are legislative efforts. And of course, there's artists like yourselves in both of your, you know, well, now together, but in both of your mediums that are helping do this. Anything next that we should know about, or anything that y'all working on together or separate that, you know, might want to share with anyone? I don't know, like making music or anything, making films, I don't know, something like that.
I'll be lucky. I'm sure Kim and I have a long life ahead. And so you'll be the first to know about it when something else is happening, on the movie front at least.
All right. Kemba, you got anything on the, I know you teased something recently. What do you got?
Yeah, I just put out a song called "Hear No Evil," and I'm you know, in the swing of putting out music all year, and so yeah, just look out. Hopefully we can talk again about it.
100%, man. You know, you're always welcome here. I often like to take credit for your success, but you know, I mean, it is, as you know, I've told you this. The thing is, I've told you this several times during your careers now. That I'm so glad I met you, you know, when I first did, and to see the progression, kind of knowing what was going to happen, and finally, you know, picking it was like, this guy's great. To see you, come to fruition and everything that I know that you've gone through personally and professionally, it is a true joy and honor to see this come to life. So,
Thank you, brother, and congratulations, man. I love seeing everything you do at award-winning podcast. Okay, you've been in the church like with me forever, like since I was a teen, man. So, like you're really about it. I love seeing it.
I appreciate the appreciation, man, and it goes both ways. So yeah, come back and talk to me, both of y'all, anytime y'all got something going on, and we'll be in touch for sure. Next time I come up to New York, we'll hang out.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Peace.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one.
Year. There you go. I give a year for the Bronx folk and the New York folk. There it is. Rap music on trial. It's called As We Speak. And as we speak, it's live on Paramount Plus. You like that? Segue king up in here. Yeah. So again, Paramount Plus. Shouts to my man Kemba. Some of us originally known him as YC the Cynic. Shouts to my OGs in the chat. We got some good friends in the room. Natalie Crew. We got TK. We got Conscious. We got Charlotte Michelle. We got Adam Cruz. We got Flow Stories in the building. What up? We got Silent Night. There was some shout outs to RDAC, Rebel Diaz. I wanted to bring that question up because I personally know that, thank you, Charlotte, that I think that, what RDAC did, the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective, and Kemba, and folks like Bonfire Radio, and Homeboy Sandman, and Freestyle Mondays, and End of the Week. And when I came into New York and I saw that so many people were doing so many, I was in New York, but when I stuck my nose into the hip hop scene as a journalist, I said, there's so many people doing such innovative stuff, but all the things that they think don't exist in hip hop anymore. Like this is what they say doesn't happen. There's no community. There's no political activism. There's no each one teach one. There's no respect for the elders. There's no lyricism. There's no, all that stuff existed in this, I don't want to say this little scene. It was a big scene. It was New York City, damn it. You know what I mean? So all these things existed. Kemba is proof of that. We see rap lyrics on trial. We see people, look, I love hip hop. I love folks that talk about it online. I watch a lot of conversations online, and you will see a lot of folks who will say, well, these young kids is just telling on themselves and they deserve what they get. And I really urge you to check the documentary. It's on Paramount Plus. It's called As We Speak. Because while that seems like, the obvious thing to say, and I get it, I get the urge to do that. These dummies talking on, they're spitting they crimes on their songs and they're giving themselves away. I get that. There's two things with that. Number one, legally, that's a slippery slope because you'll hear from the documentary how they have taken lyrics from somebody who really wasn't even. Mac Phipps is a huge example. This is a very famous case. You'll hear about it in the documentary. Was sort of there during the commission of a crime, but didn't commit the crime. I could be guilty of a crime if you're the driver, you know what I mean? Or you're the homeboy to the homeboy who does the shooting, but you're there. But so he's on trial as well for this incident. And they take his lyrics that he had written and literally splice two different songs. Now, I can tell you right now, if I went into a courtroom, first of all, if you ever looked at my songs that I wrote when I was rapping, you would think I had an incredible sexual prowess. Now, part of that might be true, but part of it is not. I'll tell you now. So you could put me on trial for having an incredible sexual prowess. I don't know why you would do that, but if you did, you could take pieces of the songs that I happened to write, and they were somewhat, I don't want to say total embellishment, because some of that, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, but the point is that when it's done insidiously, where you take two pieces sometimes of different songs and put them together, I could say the line, we walked into the club and we got it popping. That's all I got to say. We got the club popping. Now, vernacular-wise, that might mean like we got the spot jumping. We have a good time. There's music, there's dancing, there's all kinds of things. But it doesn't take much for a prosecutor or a judge or a jury to hear popping, and you say, well, that's colloquial for shooting, popping shots, shooting people. And we walked into a club and there's a shoot. So if there happened to be a shooting in a club where I was once, and you went back, you got me, riled me up, although this wouldn't happen to me because I'm white. But, You understand what I'm saying? How this could be so insidiously used in such a negative way. So before we say, these young people always telling on themselves they need to go to jail. And again, DA Fani Willis, infamous for going against Trump, which I support those efforts, but also was one to say, if you're telling yourself in lyrics, I'm gonna put you in jail. It's not that black and white. So number one, if you're the reading type, this is the book, Race, Lyrics, and Guilt in America. Eric Nielsen and Andrea L. Dennis. Andrea L. Dennis is dope. They're both dope. Forward by Killer Mike. I saw them talking about this book in a conference. I'm trying to get them on the show, but luckily, our good friend Kemba and my new good friend J.M. Harper, who put together this documentary. Once again, what up? Yo, Corey James Gray in the space. What up? Love you, bro. Good to see you. One time, I just want to show you the trailer. If you caught it, the end of it, obviously you can go back and check it. We're live every Monday, 9 p.m. But if you subscribe to matter of fact, you're watching on YouTube, just subscribe real quick. Thumbs up, do all the things. We'll have this set up as a standalone interview. You can go back and catch it. And I just want to show, if you caught the end of the interview or came in late, I just want to show you the trailer to the film one more time. And then I got another great guest that we're going to get right into as we are perfectly on schedule, because I am just a one-man dynamo up in this piece. It's your man, Manny Faces. One time for me, God damn it.
Manny Faces.
You
Wait,
sick
that was
for this one. Sick for this one.
I hit the wrong button. What's going on there? I wasn't. What's that? That's for Hip-Hop Can Save America After Dark.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one.
Let's go. The most enlightening hip-hop live stream in all the world. Let's do it. One more time. Let's go.
The conditions shape the culture, then they focus on the symptoms. Make a profit off, make a mockery of, then lock you up for lyrics.
Rap lyrics are playing an increasingly prominent role in criminal cases.
Artists say the current law violates the First Amendment right to freedom, igniting a national debate among attorneys.
These trials affect rap artists and typically stem from racial prejudice.
The criminalization of hip-hop is not new, it's an old tactic.
But I'm storytelling in a song. You gonna use that against me?
Every song, every lyric, every video that you've ever been involved with, they're gonna use against you.
They're gonna say it's you. You are a killer, and we're gonna lock your ass up.
If they don't have evidence, what are they gonna do?
It's not about justice. They spliced the lyrics of two different songs together, so I was found guilty.
This artistic expression is a confession.
They're taking all of my music as evidence. The only thing I feel like I would want to do is music. So how are you trying to stop me doing that?
We can criminalize rap all we want, but that's not gonna resolve the issue.
And if we lose this case, who's next?
This is how it is being us.
Don't help your enemies destroy you.
I'm ready. Roll the tape.
Love it. One time for Kemba. If you know, you know. I love seeing our friends succeed. If you love seeing your friends succeed, then make sure you're subscribing to this channel. If you got a couple dollars a month, $5 a month, could just buy me a coffee once a month. I'd appreciate it. It keeps the lights on. Otherwise, the show would look like this. We don't want, who wants that? No one wants to see this. Everyone wants the lights on. The lights are the beautiful part. Patreon.com/Manny Faces helps support these and other efforts, including the free newsletter, Words on Manifest, which gives you updates to these kind of stories. If you had subscribed to this newsletter, you would have heard about this movie about a month ago. If you had watched this show, you would have heard about this documentary about 3 weeks ago. So just want to let you know there's some things happening. If you're tuned in with us for the first time, I'm here to blow your mind. Bars. Shouts to EO Dub, the mighty EO Dub. You were mentioned earlier tonight as I talked about all the great foundational, inspirational, institutional, seminal stalwarts of hip-hop culture in New York City. Shouts to the mighty EO Dub. Gangsta Grass is in the building. Come on, man. One time for the... Y'all might be on that Beyonce, but you better check on that Gangsta Grass who've been doing that bluegrass hip-hop blend for a minute. Had them on the show a while back. We're going to get my friends back in the building. Anyway, it's your man, Manny Faces. I do appreciate y'all from tuning in and turning up with us. Shouts to all our good friends from Bonfire Radio, the family that's checking in. Listen, we're here every Monday night. We're bringing you the most enlightening hip-hop live stream in all the land. We're giving you the stuff that nobody I don't say nobody, but nobody really be talking about too much about the ways that hip hop is being used to uplift humanity in different areas. We just talked about it in the legal system and politics and activism. I'm going to bring you education, science and technology, health and wellness, politics and activism, all the good stuff happening. Yo, big shouts. I want to give them shouts. Gangsta Grass. If y'all don't know about my friends, you got to check them out. Like I said, just a wonderful mix of music genres. As I interviewed them a couple years ago, I said, bluegrass and hip hop can either go two ways. It can either go really, really, really good or really, 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 really bad. And I guarantee you that my friends at Gangsta Grass are the really, 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 really good side of that equation. So shouts to Gangsta Grass. They got a Kickstarter coming up. You might have seen them on America's Got Talent. And I had them first, just like I had Kemba first. I'm really good at this. I should be. Yeah. I wonder, are there any parlay? Are there any parlay bets for dope acts to become successful? I'm pretty good at picking them. Anyway, my friends Gangsta Grass in the building. Definitely check out them. Definitely want to have them on the show ASAP. Now, part 2 of this, I told you I had 2 great guests. I'm trying to double up guests every night. We got stuff for the rest of March. We're booked solid. Make sure you're subscribing and thumbs up and sharing and doing all the things. Okay. This one's dope too. If you're an educator, if you're a parent, if you're someone that's looking for ways to uplift humanity through hip hop, we got a dope guest coming up next. Again, another pre-recorded interview because my people are so busy. They're doing the work. And so I'm here to help amplify and signal boost the work. This is Jamila Sams. Jamila Sams is the owner of a company called We Do It for the Culture. When I say we do it for the culture, what they do is it's an educational curriculum that can be used in schools, and even parents can access this to get a better connection with our young people, social and emotional learning through hip hop. There's a big thing that happens with our older folk and younger folk. There's a big disconnect where it's like, we don't understand them. We certainly don't understand their music, their culture, the way they do things. They don't respect the elders enough. There's a disconnect, a generational disconnect. Y'all know it. If you hip hop heads, you know what I'm talking about. If you hip hop heads of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. And there are a bunch of folk that have, and I've done this. It's helped me realize that there are better ways to connect to the young folk, whether you're a teacher to students, whether you're a parent to your kids, whether you're a community member to the young people in your community, through hip hop that kind of meets them halfway. And there's some companies and some initiatives that are helping do that. Jamila Sams and We Do It for the Culture is helping do that. So I wanted to give platform and space to her work, and we're going to do that, I think, right now. Let's see how I can do it.
How are you, Manny?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great now that we're here together in this space. I've given folks on the live stream a little bit of, little heads up on who you are and what you do. But if you could, real quick, tell me how we do it for the culture.
Depends on who you're asking. So since you're asking me, what I do for the culture is I'm an educator for the culture. Everything I do is about using education as a tool for liberation, and hip hop is at the center of that. I'm the founder of Go to Miss Sam's Incorporated, which is a consulting company, and we work with schools to create positive, productive, and equitable spaces for young people. And I also founded We Do It for the Culture, which is a culturally responsive social emotional learning curriculum rooted in hip hop culture for grades 6 through 12.
So that's the main project right now. The curriculum. You've inserted this in schools throughout the country.
Right.
You're consulting and putting it in these spaces. So for lay people that might be coming into the room, some of us know who you are. So we'll leave them for a minute. But the folks that might be learning about your work for the first time, what is a curriculum that's rooted in hip hop culture and focuses on social and emotional learning, which is sort of the like I said, the core of the competencies being served by this curriculum. What does that look like?
So I'll start with social emotional learning. So that's the art of, naming our emotions and managing our emotions for personal and societal change. And we leverage hip hop culture within social emotional learning because at the root of hip hop It's all about making sure that we're amplifying the voices, particularly of people that are often not seen, not heard, and not valued. And so when we center our voices within these 5 social emotional learning competencies, we're able to really tap into the whole person. And so when you think about self-awareness, that's the first SEL competency. We connect that directly to the 5th element of hip hop, which is knowledge of self. And for me, knowledge of self has always been, even though it's the 5th element, I really believe it's the first element, because
From which all elements flow.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you think about human nature, it starts with self-awareness. And then the other SEL competency, self-management, how we manage our emotions. So we look at hip hop culture as a tool for us to express ourselves through these various art forms. When we think about social awareness, hip hop has always been, the apex for making sure that we are raising awareness about things that are happening, whether it's in our local communities or on a global scale. Then you have responsible decision making. For me, again, as a purist, hip hop for me has always been about education and elevation. And then last but not least, we have relationship skills, and everything about hip hop is connected to relationship skills, from being the DJ to breaking to being in a cipher. It's all connected. And so what we've done in the curriculum is that we leverage content that students want to talk about, and we connect it back to those 5 SEL competencies and those 5 elements of hip hop.
This is amazing stuff, because it's as I say to folks that do kind of the work that we try to do, or the stuff we try to get across to the world, but put it into a book. I had Dr. Toby Jenkins on, put in a curriculum. What you're doing here, y'all are able to package it in a way that makes so much sense and is so relatable, but also, importantly enough, translates to the folks that aren't familiar with the culture.
Right.
And with our movements and our music and our, way of being, our ethos translates it to that. That's the importance of doing this as a curriculum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of schools do not have the resources. Sometimes even just teachers are struggling with the language in order to connect with students. And so because hip hop is universal and is touching all young people, no matter where you're from, I think just having that common language, the common culture, experiences that they want to talk about, then helps teachers to build deeper relationships with students. And so we kind of use that as a conduit for those conversations.
Again, for folks like us that maybe, certainly like yourself, that have come up in not only hip hop culture, but, Black culture, this is sort of the, again, the ethos that you live with, but not every teacher comes from either of those cultures or communities, or the Venn diagram where they intersect. So they might look at this, and I talk to, music ed educators and regular folks who say, I might want to, I like the sound of this. I'd like to connect to my children more. I work in a predominantly, minority, school district. Is this something that they can look at? How do you, I guess, assuage their fears or their hesitations because they're not familiar or from these cultural backgrounds?
Right. That's a really great question, and we're asked that a lot, and we come across that in our daily work. And so what we do is we leverage hip hop culture as a tool for storytelling. That's ultimately what it is. And a lot of teachers, unfortunately, were taught to teach content and not human beings. And so they struggle with vulnerability. They struggle with empathy. They struggle with even just listening because they're so busy, being, a dictator instead of a facilitator. And so what the curriculum does is gives them a resource. So what we're learning is that teachers are finding more about themselves through the curriculum, which is then impacting the students. And so we've had a lot of teachers say, I wasn't prepared. I wanted to talk about what's happening with George Floyd, but I didn't know how. And so your curriculum gave me a tool for me to understand that I need to create a space for students to just be able to hear their own voices. It's not about my voice, it's about the student's voice. But your curriculum gave me the resource and the tools in order to create that space. And it made me look at myself and maybe some biases that I had a little differently. And so what I love about it is that it's not just impacting students' SEL competencies, but it's also impacting the adults and causing them to be more reflective and step out of their comfort zone to have more vulnerable conversations with young people.
What are some of the, I don't know, results of that? Like, what have you seen from teachers or heard from teachers? You said they want maybe a couple of just more anecdotes where they say, I have now been able to do this thing that I didn't expect to be able to do. What are some of the success stories?
Yeah, a lot of them are saying that the communication. So just to backtrack a little bit, most of the schools that use We Do It for the Culture use it during the time of day called advisory or a social emotional learning block. Now that's a whole nother conversation because social emotional learning should be happening all day, not just in a block.
Right.
But
It's like social and emotional learning month.
right.
Okay, got you.
It is actually SEL week next week.
Oh, okay. So but it should be every week should be,
right. It shouldn't be looked at as another thing to do. It should be something that is embedded in your daily practices. But with that said, most schools use We Do It for the Culture during advisory. And so advisory can either, well, first let me define advisory. It's a time of day where teachers kind of take off their teacher hat and they serve as a mentor or coach to a small group of students. And they get to know those students really well. And it helps to build kind of a sub-community within the larger school community. So those students get to know each other well. And, a lot of times schools bring their advisories together for different experiences or competitions, anything to help make the community more positive and equitable and inclusive of all students. And so during advisory, when they're using the curriculum, what we're noticing is that they use it at least 40 minutes a week, that the connections not only between student to student are stronger, but now the connections between the adult and students is even stronger. They're noticing that students that are more apt to not speak, a lot of introverted students are starting to speak up because now, again, they're creating this safe and brave space where they feel comfortable in making their voice heard. And so that for us, that's what it's all about. We could do a lot of independent studies, research studies, and all those things, but it's hard to just measure humanity, right? Just the connections that we have between, people from different backgrounds. And so that's what we're most proud of.
So now the opposite of that, I guess, is what's not the opposite. What are the failures? I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what are the, you said teachers don't like to be vulnerable. Nobody likes to be vulnerable, right? Nobody likes to put that on display. And so what are some of the things that, I guess social emotional learning or social emotional teaching or the teaching of it has become, more prevalent in educational spaces. What are some of the fears and hesitations that teachers specifically have that this helps kind of overcome, I guess?
Yeah, a lot of, even myself, when I was in my educational process and becoming a teacher, there's this stigma like don't smile until November, right? You always have to look like you are the head of your class and control they actually use words like control your classroom. And that is a very, top down, oftentimes creating spaces for more, when things happen, more punitive measures. That's not the type of environment that we want to create. And so helping teachers to kind of unlearn all of those things, talk about the miseducation of teachers.
Right.
That's one, shout out to Lord Hill. That's one of the things that they need to change. And for a lot of them, especially those that may be, a little older, it's hard for them to kind of get out of that mode. However, once they do, they're able to see that, okay, as a human being, I'm just maybe a little older, but I come to the table with all of these experiences. As a young person, you're coming to the table with all of these experiences. What experiences do we share? What experiences can we learn from each other? And so for those that are reluctant, 9 times out of 10, those same adults that struggle with building relationships with their students, they struggle building relationships outside of the school, outside of the workplace, right? And so, they may be really passionate about their content area. I really love science. I really love math, but I don't know how to make math connect to my students. So if you're not able to make that connection, what are you doing?
Right.
Right.
And hip hop can be a conduit to that too. Like this is
Absolutely.
you just said content area. It's content area agnostic,
Mm-hmm.
right? In a way, it doesn't matter. Like you could be a math or a science teacher. How does that, like, specifically, as an example, those connections can be made?
Yeah, like hip hop. I learned geography growing up by listening to hip hop.
Right.
AFRICA, Angola, Soweto, Zimbabwe. I could break it down, right? Like
Right.
I learned geography. I learned, mathematics. Listening to Yazin Bey, Mos Def. Like hip hop is universal, and just the science behind hip hop. The rhythm, the beats, counting the measures. I grew up playing the piano and I had a metronome and I had to count the measures. Like, all of that is connected to hip hop culture, spoken word, making sure that you're bringing in, different vernaculars and all those things into your ELA classes. Like it's so connected. And I think the biggest space where we see a lot of teachers not just using We Do It for the Culture in their SEL blocks or advisory blocks is they're starting to use it in their English classes in addition to their history classes. Because again, we think about, promoting social justice and social awareness, there's a lot of stories that go into that work. Right now, we're about to create a lesson to elevate youth voices in Palestine. So looking at MC Abdul, his latest track, Pen Greater Than a Sword, like that's a powerful track coming from a young person. But from a historical perspective, now you can connect what's happening right now to what's been happening, for decades. And so these are just ways that, hip hop is impacting education. And I'm really glad that more schools are open to seeing the power of hip hop pedagogy in their schools.
Now, that's my next question. Actually, we talk about this to a lot of folks that are trying to get into the schools, get into the systems. Is it become easier in the past few years? I know obviously the perception against hip hop, we don't have to harp over it. We all know what that is, generally speaking. But we also know that all these things that you're saying, this isn't like overnight. This has been happening. We got the receipts. It works. It's effective. And there's been programs and research and literature and all the things. So overall, as you approach schools or as schools approach you, maybe, is that hesitation lessened over the past few years? Are we getting in a better space with being able to do this on a greater level? I also look at things like what states like Florida are doing. I'm like, well, they're not going to go for it. Like, how does that work, in the general grand scheme of things?
Yeah. I think when school districts want it bad enough, they'll figure out a way. Right. And so based on what you just said, I will say, like, we have curriculum happening in schools in Texas. And because we're on a public platform, I'm not going to tell you which ones, because there's such a disdain. There's such a just, and so I don't even want to bring that district up, but to know that in Texas it's happening. I think the importance is, how bad do you feel as though your students need it, right? And so we're now in districts that I never expect we would be in. Like our second largest is probably Portland, Oregon. And we know about all the different racial tension that Portland has, experienced over the years. But now, and we still have a percentage of teachers that are not 100% on board. But here's the great thing about this, right? I'm going to ask why. What's holding you back, right? Why don't you want to engage in this conversation? Let's get to the root of it. So this is just a conduit to having much bigger conversations about race, about equity, about economics, about, biases. Like, this is what we're going to talk about. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, this experience, you're a little more, interested in, getting past those personal barriers that you're creating for yourself to actually use the curriculum. Because that is essentially, that's what they are.
It starts with us grownups, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And so again, for those that are and then to your point earlier, you said most of us understand the culture, but unfortunately that's not the case. We're seeing more and more that a lot of people still have this perception of hip hop culture as rap culture. And I'm
Right.
one of those people where I make the distinction.
Yep.
And so when we go into a district or a school, we do trainings or we may be doing a pilot, I make sure that I, separate rap culture and, whether it's, homophobia, sexism, violence, all of those, narratives, I separate the capitalistic side of the culture from what it was originally intended to be. And so I make that distinction because there are still a lot of stereotypes about what it means to be a part of hip hop culture. And so by having that conversation alone, a lot of teachers then start to let down their guard a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. If also having media outlets with people that also emphasize that very important fact that gets lost in the sauce.
Absolutely.
Because as you know, it's important to erase those narratives, or not, I mean, not erase, but confront them and make the distinctions that you do, and that's important because as we know, again, this is just saying things that we inherently know.
Right.
Finding a way to get it into the right places and drop the seeds and the gems in front of the people who have the ability to make the world a better place through their positions. And so that's the work, and it's wonderful. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions about the specifics of the thing that I found really interesting. But I just want to, before I forget, there are schools that I'm just kind of the logistics of it. Schools that accept the curriculum. Can teachers do this independently, or does it have to come through the school district? So if teachers are like, well, my district's not gonna go for it, but on the low, I want to get involved, that's possible too.
Yes, absolutely. So we have parents that sign up, and
I was going to ask for parents too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Parents, teachers, program providers for youth development programs. So it runs the gamut.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So it's like you said, it's universal, and that's great, and it's accessible. So that's fantastic. Excuse me. What I love how you tied in earlier, so the knowledge of self to self-awareness, like these parallels, right? To the pillars, the tenets of social and emotional learning. I loved how on the site we do it for theculture.com. You list some of the lesson plans and some of the the ways that you do this. The ability, like what you learn from being a DJ. And like the things you learn about, what I know, I've been a DJ I've been everything, but I've been a DJ for a long time. And the idea of just like, and again, we know this, but we don't hear it sometimes. Even DJs, that are connected to the culture and all up in it, say, that reading of the room, I mean, that ability to know what's happening, to judge it, like that's a very social skill. Yeah. So give me a couple of those like parallels of like something we wouldn't expect to know. I mean, we talk about, I've talked, the power of the cipher, and Tony Blackman's talked about how you know what to do in the cipher. No one tells you what to do in the cipher, but you just learn the social cues. This is the stuff we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a segment of our training that we do with teachers, and we talk about the 5 different elements of hip hop, and we get them to connect, because oftentimes teachers don't even realize that they're doing some of those things naturally. Whether it's call and response, that's relationship skills, right?
And I've seen the sitting in a circle, like this is the way we communicate better. Like, yeah, that's the cipher. We know this.
Yes, absolutely. And so, what we try to get them to do is push themselves a little further. So how do you get to the point where your classroom can operate like a cipher without saying these are the rules of our classroom, right? Because in a cipher, there are no rules, right? But people respect the flow. And so helping teachers to understand how to, ways to cultivate the environment so that it just flows naturally and students aren't disrespecting each other. They're not talking over each other. They're connecting with their voices to other voices seamlessly. Like that is what we're trying to get them to understand. And a lot of these things they may already be doing. So yeah, they serve as the MC for their classroom, but they're not the only MCs. All of those young people in front of you, they're MCs too, right? And so how often are you giving them the mic? Are you holding the mic the whole time, or are you passing the mic? And so we make all of these, analogies and connections to get them to understand that, again, this is great teaching, right? Hip hop is, pedagogy in action, and getting them to understand that they're doing it already or they're not doing it let me help you figure out ways that you can cultivate the space so that these things are happening a little more organically and your students are engaged.
I love it. And as many of us who end up where we are, where you are, it's not a straight path. I'm curious, like how you got here, how you got to doing this, like this will probably take a long time. I feel like anyone else that has a lot of converging, paths all over the place. So we can get the Cliff Notes version. But sort of what was your connection to hip hop? How did you take that into education? And then how did this kind of evolve out of it? Those three key milestones in your life.
Yes, I'm definitely going to give you the quicker
I know,
version.
I get it. And people ask me too. I'm like, how much? I've got some years on me. That's going to be a while. A lot of things happen along the way. But tell me, I'm curious.
I will share the foundation. I will definitely share the foundation. So
you're from where?
I'm from Philly.
All right.
Yeah, I'm from Philly. My father's from Harlem. My mother's from Bermuda. So my hip hop really came from my father. So he's, as Jay-Z said, he was the type of guy that could sell water to a whale, right? So he's always had the gift of gab. When I was young, about 8 years old, he started a store in West Philly called the What's Happening Now shop.
Okay.
And he was so in tune with his community that he positioned, and he was a salesman, right? So he positioned the store. It was kind of like a bodega or a corner store. Okay. He positioned it right next to 3 schools. So we were right behind West Philly High School. So on any given day, the shop will be flooded with high school students coming from West Philly High. They were coming to get their fat shoelaces, their penny candy, Slurpees, you name it. They were in there, or ices as we call them in Philly.
I'm from New York. There were Slurpees. I get it. Yeah.
So that was the spot. That was the place to be. And so he would pump, his favorite song was Jam on It. So he would pump out music in these big woofer speakers, and literally like kids would just come in droves,
It was a spot. It was a spot.
It was the spot. And so I'm 8 years old behind the counter, selling penny candy, and I'm interacting and I just see it. And it's a vibe, right? Before I knew what a vibe was, it was a vibe. Right. And that just always stuck with me. And he would be the first one to bring in, the mixtapes. I remember he brought me my first EPMD, cassette tape. Like he would be the one to bring me all this because now he had relationships with the local DJs and radio stations. And so later on, my dad became a printer. So he and my mother started a company in Philly called Imprints Unlimited. And they would make the passes, the backstage passes and the tickets for all of the shows. And so they sold the business now. My dad's an ancestor, so I can say this now. So I would get all my backstage passes.
Of course. Oh, one fell off the printing press. Oops. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I would get all my backstage passes. So I've seen so many.
Talk about the plug.
Yeah, right. Plug.
Yeah.
So I had so many experiences, and so I was just like embedded in the culture the entire time. The entrepreneurial aspect of it. I'm 3rd generation entrepreneur. So fast forward to me becoming an educator. I became an educator, and I talk about it in a couple public spaces, but long story short, I was involved with somebody that really wasn't good for my health. And he had 2 nephews that they were young and they weren't being taught their ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. And I was in a weird place in my life where I would spend a lot of time with those 2 young people. And I realized that I enjoyed going there, not to see the knucklehead I was dealing with at the time, but I was enjoying bringing books and reading to them and teaching them ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And then when I went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and I became an education major because I wanted to be a creative director, but they didn't have that program. So I ended up being an education major, and that literally changed my life. And so I've always used hip hop as, again, like a conduit, something to connect, because I was really into hip hop. And I just also assumed that all students across the world were interested in hip hop. So when I moved from Philly to Baltimore, I got a rude awakening from a cultural perspective, now I'm only 21 years old, so I just make all of these blanket assumptions. But when I'm
Right.
in Baltimore, they were like, now we listen to club music. And so I was like, oh, word. So now I have to shift, right? So I bring in some house, you know, but I will also bring in some club. And so I was still bringing the house that's connected to, like, you know, Jungle Brothers and things of that nature.
Right. The hip house.
The
at the
hip
time.
house,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But I would still learn, like, who are you all listening to? And so I would bring that into the space. And then eventually I became an assistant principal. And after that, just started my own company because I wanted autonomy. And I wanted the ability to help schools create these spaces. I was really blessed to come from schools that had really great leadership and built really strong community. And I wanted to replicate that for other schools across the nation. So that's why I kind of started the consulting business. And then through that work, I really noticed that schools didn't have a culturally responsive SEL curriculum to use with their students. A lot of it is very, you know, Leave It to Beaver, you know, very outdated concepts. And our students, that's not the way they learn. They have to be fully immersed in whatever it is that you're talking about. So you got to make those authentic connections. And that just wasn't happening with the curriculum that was out there. And so I just decided, you know what, I need one that's going to center the culture, center our voices. And that's why I created We Do It for the Culture. So a little longer than the Cliff Note version.
No,
but
I love it. 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 I was born right outside of Philly, actually, but I grew up in, I grew up on Long Island. So when you say PMD, I'm like, yeah, that's what's up. And I also know, I happen to know, because I watched other interviews, that we share our number one top dead or, you know, top 5 dead or alive in Rakim. So Strong Island in the house. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's it. A couple more questions before you go, if you could be so kind. One is like, and this is the overarching holistic question, right? In the field, in the work that you're doing, you know, it seems to some of us, and I'm sure sometimes yourself maybe, and folks that work with you, that while these strategies and, you know, integrations and intersections are so valuable and are so good at helping uplift the educational lives of young people across the board, right? Again, this is universal. This works. You know, a lot of times people say, well, you know, this will be great in the inner city. Well, no, yes. And it can be used anywhere. There's white people in Idaho that like hip hop too, or will connect to it. You don't have to like hip hop. You'll connect to the, you know, because you listen to the music and but also most important, it would probably be best beneficial to the lives and livelihoods and communities that have been traditionally underserved and under-resourced and underloved. So for all the reasons, this is, you know, brilliant work, and it's important and vital for the equality and equity of our nation as a whole.
Right.
Not everyone wants that though, right?
No.
And so you have states, you have districts, you have perhaps on a federal level. You're going to have, you know, this is not an easy battle, even though the receipts are clear and you know, and we feel good about it.
Right.
Overall, I don't want it to seem like it's hopeless that this would ever be something that could be used in a mass scale. But I know people ask that all the time. I was just at a panel here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta these days. I did the thing that New Yorkers do, and I moved to Atlanta. And it was about the intersection of hip hop and social justice. And one of the questions was, I'm sure there are people doing this kind of hip hop education or integration that came up in pockets over here and over here and over here, but there's no like web or, you know, connectivity or whatever. And I said, well, first of all, you know, Hip Hop Ed, you know, check out the family that does that. And there is a coalition, let's just say.
Yes. Shout out to the
So
fam.
again, I'm asking holistic. I'm asking to solve. Can you solve the whole thing in one sentence? But I'm saying, like, what do we have to do as a society, as individuals, to help make this be more widely understood or more widely adopted in the education system as a whole? Like, what are some of the things besides obviously bring the curriculum in and do all the things? You know what I'm saying? I know it's a big holistic question.
Right. It is a big question, but kind of like the individual conversations that I have with teachers all over the nation, when they are reluctant, I ask why.
Yeah.
And those 3 letters
right.
lead to such great conversations, because a lot of times, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And the reluctancy for us to figure out what we don't know means oftentimes I now have to give up something that I've held on to for so long. I have to
Right.
give up an ideology that I've held on
Baked
to.
in. It's baked
And
in. You got,
it's
yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
And if I give that up, who am I?
Right.
And a lot of people do not want to peel back those layers because of fear.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
And so if we can address that, then people may take down their guards to learn something new. And so I think it has to start with reflection. I think it has to start with us asking why. And that's for all of us, right? Because we all have
Yeah, no,
biases
that's valid.
that we need to address. And so when we peel back those layers and ask ourselves why, then we also have to listen. I feel like now, listening is, thank goodness for podcasts, so people are starting to listen more. But listening is an art. It's not about thinking about what you're going to say before the person is finished speaking. It's about literally listening and then feeling what they're saying, empathize with what they're saying, and then doing the research. So don't take anything for face value. Go and do the research behind what was just shared. And so those three things, self-awareness, getting out of our comfort zone and pushing past the fear, accepting the fact that we may have to let go parts of ourselves that we've held on to for so long, and then building those connections and doing the research. Most people don't want to do that because they're on autopilot. And so I'm grateful for, podcasts like yours and, platforms and curriculums like mine that is helping people to kind of pause and think. And when that happens, I think it's magical once we can break down those walls and those barriers that we create for ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, those three things, being, coming out of your comfort zone and relationship skills, that's all stuff you can learn from hip hop. So anyway, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the same.
It's
all
all
the same mix.
connected.
I love it. I'm very, as you know, as I think you know, or you should know, I've, obviously been watching what you've been doing for a long time, been wanting to talk to you about it for a long time. I think that this serves to do some of that. Like when folks listen, I know we preach to the choir a little bit, I know a lot of folks that follow all these ideas, listen to the show, but I do know for a fact that there are folks outside of what we do, that pay attention. And this is a perfect primer to some of that, to start asking those questions or having them ask those questions to themselves. So I welcome folks to do that. Write in, tell us what you think, talk to, reach out to y'all over there. We do it for the culture, the number 4 culture.com. And I'll leave you, unless there's anything else let me ask you this and then I'll ask you that. Last question that I like to sometimes sneak into this is, I did name this show Hip Hop Can Save America. And it's a very lofty idea, and we may need a little bit more than just hip hop. But without giving you the reasons why I named it that and why I believe in that sort of philosophy, what do you think of when you hear that statement, when you first heard that, and your thoughts when someone says hip hop can save America?
Yeah. You can't heal what you're not willing to confront. And so I feel like hip hop can save America because it puts at the forefront all the different social ills that this country has given birth to for over 400 years. And it puts it right in your face and you can't run from it. So you got to be able to confront it in order to heal. And so the way that we confront it is through social justice work, through education, through cultural exchange and understanding, through political engagement, through mental health awareness. But all of those things are right at your face, front and center through hip hop. And you can either run towards it and heal from it or run away from it. But hip hop is still going to keep going. We don't die. We just multiply like gremlins. So
That's right. That's right. That's right. I hear you. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate your work. I appreciate your time and your perspective and your insight and being so generous in coming on here and talking about what you're doing. Is there anything else that the program's got coming up that you personally have going on that you want to share with the folks who might be interested in hearing what's next or what's ongoing?
Yeah, so we're excited to launch a series of asynchronous lessons so that teachers can actually log on and get some self-development work outside of us coming into doing training. So we're really excited about that, and we're looking forward to working with some really dope educators and practitioners in the space to collab on some of these. And so we're really excited about that. But right now we're in 15 states and growing, and we're just grateful for the opportunity to make an impact.
Yeah, well, I hear that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to know you and to amplify and signal boost what you're doing. And you're welcome to come back anytime you have some, new things popping that you want us to share with the folks. But other than that, I really thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everything that you're doing for the culture, Manny.
I appreciate that appreciation.
Manny Faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one.
There it is. Jamila Sams, we do it for the culture. Check out We Do It For, the number 4, theculture.com. Again, definitely situated and aimed at teachers and schools, but also, as you mentioned, parents can get can get in on this too. And we often talk here about what can we do as elders and OGs, and we know that the hip hop stratosphere is surrounded by folks who are really disappointed in how the elders, the young people, don't respect the elders, whether it comes to music or culture. I mean, this is no new. This is nothing new. We didn't listen to what our parents were telling us when we first started dabbling in hip hop. When we first started dressing a certain way. None of this is new. So we have a little bit of work to do ourselves, I think. I often use the example because we're hip hop minded, right? And I hear a lot of folks that'll lament the fact that the young people today, all they do, we used to rap about selling drugs, and all the young people do is rap about taking drugs, right? And I'm like, as if the former was better. I mean, but the implication there is that there's something, we were harder, we were tougher. The young people are lazy and soft. There's two things to that. I always like to say, we're supposed to make it easier for our kids, right? Isn't that the goal? You know what I mean? Like, they're supposed to be like better in life, you know what I mean? And so they shouldn't have to be so hard rock and so have to, put up all their hackles all the time. But number two, it's as if to say that there's something wrong with the softness. And if you're talking about taking drugs or self-medicating or being depressed or emo rap or this whole new thing, I'm a little bit more inclined with saying, hold on, let me not criticize my kids, my children, of which I have several, for their taste in music. Let me recognize that what they're connecting to in the music is something that triggers, again, that sort of self-medication or that self-reflection or that depressive behavior. And maybe I should tune into that rather than just being so aggravated at I don't get their music. That's a social relationship. Big Noise said in the chat. It's all about relationships. We are allowed to have relationships with our children. They don't have to be our friends. I get it. I understand. But we can have relationships with them. And what we have with hip hop is this wonderful, beautiful, multi-generational, multicultural. You know what I mean? You might be watching and you know that me and you didn't come up from exactly the same backgrounds or demographics or family or ancestral lineage. But if I'm authentic and I'm accepting and understanding and giving and taking from the relationship, we can have a bond that's as strong. Some of hip hop people are, my relationships are as strong as family's ever been, and then some. So we can have that. So why can't we use that sort of power to help connect with young people in educational spaces or with our children or with a multicultural, multinational? We got a lot of problems happening across the world that, when I say hip hop can save America, I'm not wearing the shirt. Look, I'm holding up shouts to Raphael Travis, the healing power of hip hop. Raphael Travis. Both of those things, Hip Hop Can Save America and the healing power of hip hop. We have problems across the world that can be solved through relationship building. Shouts to my people. Where's the book? I don't have the book. Shouts to my people at Hip Hop Next Level, which is a United States State Department run group initiative that sends hip hop teaching artists across the world to conflict regions and to teach diplomacy through hip hop. You don't understand. Y'all not hearing me. I don't know if there's people that are watching this that maybe never saw this before or are just like, oh my God, what are these folks are talking hip hop education, all these wonderful things. We've got the receipts, we have the initiative, we have the vision that we can literally save the world. I know hip hop can save America, and everyone comes to me like, hip hop can save the world too. I know. Y'all can support this podcast first. Let me write the book. Let me get on the map a little bit, folks. I do have hiphopcansavetheworld.com. So I'm already thinking like you think, I see what you, patreon.com/Manny Faces. Throw me $5 a month. It's a beautiful thing. What you get is, you know how to do perks and stuff. I don't really do perks. You're just supporting good hip hop journalism. I'm not funded by an organization. I'm not beholden to a corporation. You can't tell me what to talk about. If I want to talk about what's happening in the music industry, it's not going to hurt my pockets. Y'all are the only ones that I answer to. So once again, just want to say thanks. Silent Night, Mark E, Jesse G, Toast, Nicholas S, Brianna, Steffi, Kath, Morgan, Andrew Wang, Raphael Travis, Patrick, Chris J, and Adam K, who are supporting this show right here. Patreon.com/Manny Faces. I do appreciate it. Listen, this was a great show. I'm not gonna nickel and dime y'all all night. Y'all know what it is. If you could do it, do it. If you can't, it's all good. I'm still gonna do what I do. We're here every Monday night live, 9 p.m. I may be off the 18th of March, or I don't know, like 2 weeks from now. Next week we're on though. Come through. Make sure you subscribe. Tell people what they're missing. Adam Cruz said, "Oh, well, let me get y'all, put y'all on, because y'all are definitely saying what I want y'all to say." Big Noise Radio says hip hop has been one of those most unifying, diverse art forms in existence that brought us all together. Amen to that. Amen to that. I don't think there's another. It was hinted at earlier in the conversation, I think, with the folks at As We Speak, that I don't know, and personally I'm saying this as Manny Faces, I don't know of a more unifying culture. Now, I know that there's a lot of, we have to give respect where respect due. We have to definitely big up the originators, big up the origins of hip hop, young African Americans in the Bronx and the diasporic DNA that led up to it, Hispanic Americans that came in right there at the beginning and made it happen, and some white people that were good allies and dabbled and helped spread it throughout the world. There's a lot of culture vultures. There's a lot of stuff happening, right? But that all being said, when you look at hip hop worldly and obviously across demographics, even here at home, I can't think of another thing. Maybe the internet, for good or for bad. But religion doesn't do it. Sports doesn't do it. Nationalism certainly is against it. I can't think of another thing that brings people together as much as hip hop. So that's what we celebrate here. And I'm glad y'all joined me tonight. Come back every Monday night. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends what we're doing over here. I need y'all. Like, when we don't have a big machine behind us, it's up to y'all. Thanks to Adam Cruz again. Criticizing softness is totally invested in misogyny, heterosexism, transphobia, ableism. No thanks. My kids can be as soft as they want to be. Amen. I feel you on that, Adam. That's what I'm talking about. We have to have a new understanding of where these issues come from. It ain't from the music. Like we talked about earlier tonight, the first thing we talked about, our first guests, hip hop gets a lot of a bad rap for its content. But if hip hop is, and again, there's nuances to this because sometimes it's entertainment and sometimes it's not. But it is, even in its entertainment, even in its embellishment, even in its, criminality and violence, it's a reflection of humanity. So if there's problems in hip hop, there's problems in humanity. If you want to stop the content, if you're dissatisfied with the content, then what we need to focus on, it's easy. I see what D1 is doing. Oh, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there tonight. I see what folks are doing. I see. It's respectability politics. Respectability politics from a rapper, still respectability politics. We can criticize all we want. It's an easy thing to do. We can make noise. I could go at people left and right all day. And yeah, I may get some attention because I called out a big name. The point is, we've got to solve the problems in the communities from whence hip hop came and still lives and is nurtured. That's the key. And then we won't have to worry about the nuances, but there's a lot of powers against us. So what we got to do is keep coming back to this show, keep signing up to this newsletter. Let me spread information from the people that are doing the work. I'm just a guy. I'm just a conduit. I'm just sharing information. I'm just asking questions. I'm just bringing people to the forefront. So if you support me, you support them. Once again, you can come on to the Patreon, patreon.com/Manny Faces. Thanks to Jay Silent Night for checking in. I appreciate you, my man. Shouts to Keisha TK, Dutez. Shouts to Charlotte Michelle. Shouts to Conscious, my old friends and fam, my ongoing friends and fam. Old makes it seem like we're not friends no more. We're still friends. People from the Bonfire Radio. Shouts to Big Noise Radio for coming through. I appreciate you. I appreciate your commentary. Please come through. Adam K, once again, thanks for your support. Everybody who joined us. If you can, subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. I'll put up real quick so you see it. mannyfaces.substack.com. It's easy. As soon as we're done, we're going to go in like 2 seconds. Go there and subscribe. Please. It's free. I don't care if you support me on Patreon or not. You're going to get this information. You're going to get this information. You're going to get this work. It's me, Manny Faces. I'll be in New York next couple of weeks. I'm in and out for one thing. I'm doing teacher professional developments. If you work in school districts, hit me up. Hip-Hop Youth and Research Activism Conference has been postponed. Maybe later this month, later this season. I'll be in Ireland at the Global Hip-Hop Studies Conference. If this rings a bell and you're going to that, let me know. I'll see you there. I'm speaking. I'm doing all kinds of things. Just hit me up if you got any questions or want to know more about any of this stuff. See, Manny Faces, we are rocking with you every Monday night. Hip-hop can save America. Peace and love, y'all. Thank you for rocking with me tonight. Back next week. Peace.